Hey everyone, welcome to BSR Sports Talk on BostonSportsRadio.net. I'm Ashish Sharma here with Brian Roach, and we are breaking down this great Patriots victory on Thanksgiving on a short week against the Jets. I think that was one of the more dominant wins we've seen all season. But before we get to the game, actually, we have some breaking news. We just found out that Jermaine Cunningham has been suspended for 4 games by the NFL for violating the performance-enhancing drug policy. Brian, how do you think this is going to affect the team now that this is the second time this has happened in 3 weeks after Brandon Bolden suffered the same consequences?
Yeah, it's gonna really affect. He's a defensive tackle, right? Or defensive end,
He's an end.
is he?
He's an end,
He's an
yes.
end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's gonna affect our defense. He's been playing really well the last few weeks. I've seen him have some nice tackles, stop the offense of other teams from going down the field too much, like wide receivers after the run, stuff like that. So it's gonna affect how they approach defensive alignments and stuff like that. So
Yeah, right. And especially now, I was just talking to you about this before the show that, with Chandler Jones already injured, we don't know when he's coming back. Now, it didn't look like it was that severe with the injury against the Colts, but if he can't go next week, you're looking at your third string outside linebacker defensive end to fill that slot. So on a team that's now already suffering against the pass rush somewhat, Mark Sanchez was sacked a couple times last week, but we're not seeing that same caliber, run defense and pass rush that we're seeing earlier in the year. Now I think this is going to be a big hole to fill. I don't even know who the next guy in line is. So it's going to be interesting how that works out.
yeah, it's gonna be a tough task for whoever steps in and fills his shoes, so to speak.
Yeah, it's just, it's frustrating to see that guys continue to do this because you saw it with Bolden, as we mentioned. Now, Jermaine Cunningham. I know Aqib Talib wasn't on our team when he got suspended, but now, in a sense, he's the third Patriot to do this season, to get suspended for 4 games for violating this drug policy. I just don't understand if it's their stupidity or if they think they can get away with it or what it is, but somewhere down the line, they have to realize that they're putting their team's success in jeopardy by continually doing this. Because now with Jones gone and now with Cunningham out of the picture for a while, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Rob Ninkovich luckily is still on the other side, but like I said, I don't know who the other guy is that's going to step up and fill that role. So we'll see what happens, but it is what it is. We just found out the news literally 10 minutes ago. So I don't even know if the Patriots have released a statement about it, but we'll keep you guys posted if we find out anything else. Speaking of the defense, I think Steve Gregory had the game of his career last week against the Jets. He had what, 4 takeaways or no? He recovered, ran for a touchdown, and he had another forced fumble. I think that was one of the best defensive performances in a single game I've seen. He lost 3 interceptions to Peyton Manning back in 2003 in that AFC Championship game.
Yeah, it was very dominating. He looked very good. He was quick to the ball. He was just very. He kept going for the quarterback. He had that. He was the one that recovered the fumble when Mark Sanchez ran into his own offensive lineman, right?
That was hilarious. That was the funnest thing I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I think the New York Post made fun of it, and just all the New York papers had something about it. Just had that picture of him running into
Yeah.
his own offensive lineman.
It was actually, I think, Vince Wilfork pushed. Was it his right tackle or his right
Yeah,
guard?
he pushed the offensive lineman into the other offensive lineman
Yeah,
into Mark
yeah.
Sanchez.
Yeah, and I mean, like I was watching the highlights, and I think I was watching it on NFL Network, and someone pointed out, like, what was Sanchez looking at when he ran into him? Like, can't you see this big 300-pound guy in front of you? It was almost like he wasn't looking at him, and he just ran right into him and just fell backwards and dropped the ball. And Gregory was standing right there, just picked it up and ran in for a touchdown. So that was, I think you're going to see that on Sports Center's not top 10, this Friday.
Yeah, yeah,
Although it's already been that game was on Thursday and they do that on Friday, so I think they might have already had that.
yeah, probably. I missed it this week, so
Well, I think we all did. We were all recovering from our Thanksgiving hangover. Okay, well, Patrick Chung, if you noticed, did not start last game. He was lifted for Gregory coming back, and obviously McCourty has been playing safety. Do you think this is a precursor of what's to happen with Patrick Chung? I don't quote me on this, but I believe he's in the last year of his contract with New England. And he's already lost his starting job last week. I think, this might be something that they do going forward, considering Gregory and McCourty stay healthy. And he might, come in as a nickel back or things like that. But this could be him being demoted and possibly on his way out of New England.
Yeah, I mean, last week he was out, like he was out with injury. This week he was demoted, as you said, and I see him being like waived by the Patriots before season end because I mean he does have a role on this team. He's been here for a while, but what I've seen from him, he's starting to become one of those players that Bill Belichick really dislikes and like wants to have it his way, but Bill Belichick has his own way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've always been a fan of Patrick Chung. Ever since the day we drafted him, I kind of saw him as a Rodney Harrison type, a hard hitter, somewhat of a leader, a very passionate, aggressive guy. But I think after seeing him for the last 4 years, you kind of realize that he has a lot of flaws. For one, he's constantly injured. I don't think he's had a single season in which he's played more than 13 games. I'll have to check that. I'm not sure. But he just seems like he's always injured. He's not a ball hawk. He doesn't have great ball skills. And you see that he's not a great cover safety. And for him to be starting on this team, yeah, he had a couple of big games here and there. He had that amazing game in Miami where he had a punt block and then a field goal block and then a pick six. But overall, he's just not the type of guy that I want starting at my strong safety position. And yeah, like you said, I mean, he could get waived. I don't think he will. I think they'll hang on to him for the rest of the year. I mean, there's no reason to just randomly waive him because I think he can still give you some value off the bench, some production off the bench. But I think with McCourty and Gregory doing all right now, at the safety positions, I think they'll go forth with that throughout the end of the season with that combination of guys, unless there's an injury. And then in the offseason, like I've been saying over the last 2-3 shows, they're going to make a play for a guy like Ed Reed and try to rework it that way or make a play for a Charles Woodson or something like that. But, yeah, I would say that Patrick Chung is in the last, playing his last few games with I'd say that for sure, yeah. Just going to move on to Rob Ninkovich and how he's kind of been fantastic all year, how we've talked about how he's been probably the most underrated man on defense. Once again, he does it, fumble recovery. I believe this was on a ball. This was a turnover. This was a takeaway from the Jets. It wasn't on the Julian Edelman fumble later where he got concussed, which we'll get to. But, again, we've been talking about Rob Ninkovich so much this season. Do you think he's Pro Bowl worthy?
I mean, I haven't seen really many other defensive players out there who have forced havoc besides J.J. Watt.
Yeah.
So I would expect to see his name on the Pro Bowl if they even have a Pro Bowl. So
yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah. But if they do have a Pro Bowl, I would love to see Rob Ninkovich as a reserve because I think he truly deserves it. He is having probably the best year of his career. He's been on this team now for the last, 2-3 years. We haven't really talked about Rob Ninkovich all that much. He was never really a starter. This year, he's really wreaking havoc, and we're getting to see what he's truly capable of. And, I think, obviously, yeah, he's not a J.J. Swat, as people call him, or, a Clay Matthews or anything like that. But, I mean, he's pretty damn good for us. He gets the job done. He forces fumbles. He recovers fumbles. He plays hard. He's always getting after the quarterback. And with him and Chandler, that's a pretty good combination right there.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see if the Pats can lock him up for like a long-term deal once his current deal runs out. I don't know exactly when it runs out, but it'd be interesting to see exactly when he can re-sign or if the Pats decide to lengthen his contract.
All right, so let's now go on to the 35 points scored in the second quarter by the New England Patriots. I think this is a franchise record. I don't know if it's an NFL record for most points in a quarter, or at least in the second quarter. I know that much. But they scored 35 points and 3 touchdowns in under a minute. I believe one was a touchdown to Wes Welker from Tom Brady. Then the next one was a let's see, was it the fumble recovery by Steve Gregory that he took back? I know that was one of them, and then the other one was a fumble recovery by Julian Edelman, which he took back into the end zone on special teams after a.
No, I think the first one was the Shane Vereen 83-yard pass.
Yes. There you go.
And then it was the Gregory fumble, and then the Edelman 22-yard fumble return.
Yeah, the Vereen touchdown, it actually was kind of reminiscent of that 99-yard pass from Brady to Welker in Miami a few years ago. The one where he threw for 517 yards on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, that Shane Vereen pass, yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like the same play, except it was with the running back. Vereen Ridley, which is the next thing we're talking about, have been huge over the last couple of games. Now, Vereen has sort of been – last year we didn't see Vereen at all. You know, we saw Ridley somewhat, but we didn't see Vereen at all. This year he's really stepping it up. And he's showing that what he can do with Stephen Ridley. Both of them had big games. Ridley had 21 carries for,
97 yards.
7 yards. Yeah, and a touchdown. And Shane Vereen got 42 yards on the ground on 10 carries and then 91 yards on 2 receptions for a touchdown there. So I think both these backs, we're starting to see a really good running back core coming together. And then with Danny Woodhead back there as another option, I think that's just fantastic for this team.
Yeah, I mean, sure, Ridley's had his up and downs, but overall he's one of the elite running backs in the entire NFL. Sure, people don't want to admit that yet because he's young and they want to see what he can do year after year after year. But he's on pace to have over 1,000 yards, and that's pretty good for a running back in New England, where Bill Belichick does not like to run the ball as much as people would like him to.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, that's football. If you run the ball effectively, you control the game. The team that usually wins games is the one that's able to run it best and the one that limits turnovers and gets more takeaways. And that's what you saw. I mean, they ran the ball very effectively. They had 5 forced turnovers, the Patriots did on the Jets. They only turned the ball over once. That was on the Edelman concussion where he got concussed and lost the ball. You know, earlier before the show started, they had possession in this game than the Pats. They had 30 minutes and 26 seconds, whereas the Pats, it was actually even 29 minutes and 34 for the Pats. So it was not that off. But, you know, you run the ball effectively and you limit your turnovers and you usually win. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed with what Ridley and Vereen have been able to do, especially with Vereen, 133 all-purpose yards yesterday. I like seeing these guys that can get all-purpose yardage. You know, Vereen, Woodhead, Edelman, guys that can play, you know, both as receivers and running backs out of the backfield. You like to see that versatility, and I think that's been my favorite word with these last few shows is that I like versatile players because they can do so much for you. You know, you really never know as a defensive player what they're going to do.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't want to compare Ridley to Ray Rice, but I think Ridley's the type of player like Ray Rice who completed that 4th for 29 in the win over the Chargers, where he got 30 yards on a pass. I feel like Brady can rely on Ridley or Woodhead or Vereen, all 3 of them, to catch a pass like that in need of a score, field goal or whatnot, and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, they're all competent pass catchers. You know, they can run, you know, short hook routes and flats and things like that. And all of them, I think, can run a screen. So, you know, they're kind of – you see too many running backs in today's game where all they do is run. And, you know, I think all these guys are capable of giving you 100 yards, except for Woodhead. I don't really see him as a 100-yard rusher, but 100 yards on the ground and then more through the air or vice versa. Whereas Woodhead I see obviously more as a third down back, a guy that's pretty much there just to receive passes, occasionally run, things like that, get you short yardage or, you know, run screens and things like that. But I love this running back core. I hope it's together for a long time because they're all still in their prime. I mean, Woodhead, again, is the oldest one. And how old is Woodhead? He's like late 20s or something like that, or mid-20s. I'll have to double-check that.
Yeah, I think he's 25 or 26.
There you go. That's not even late 20s. So if we can keep this group together for a long time, staying healthy, I think this is a great group right here. I love it. Ridley, Vereen, and Woodhead, and then Bolden once he comes back. So I think they're set.
If Bill Belichick wants him back after, because he might have been only good because he was on the PEDs.
That's true. That's true. Hopefully that wasn't because I really like Bolden. And again, it's pretty unfortunate that all these guys are getting caught with this stuff. Let's just hope that it was in fact Adderall this time. Let's hope that's the case because I really like Bolden and I don't want him to be one of those guys who was tied to PEDs and stuff like that. So okay, so we've been talking about Edelman a lot. Let's get a little bit deeper here. He continues to shine. We talked about how last week he's potentially the next Wes Welker, and I know that's a really big thing to say because there is no next Wes Welker. He is the one. He's the only. But once he's gone next year, which it really seems like he will be, I think Edelman can step in if he can stay healthy and fill those shoes. Let's see. He had 2 touchdowns, one on special teams, which we talked about, the fumble recovery, which he took back. Then he also had a 56-yard touchdown on a post route from Brady. So obviously Edelman's showing that if he gets playing time, if he gets snaps, he can be very, very effective.
Yeah, he's caught some great balls the last few weeks. I mean, sure he doesn't get looked at as much as Wes Welker, but if Welker was hurt, you could slide Edelman in there, and maybe he'd look more towards Brandon Lloyd and whatnot. But
Yeah, no, and Welker actually had a quiet game. I mean, he had 7 catches for 71 yards. That's actually kind of for Welker, for a guy of his stature, that's actually not a huge game. When you see
yeah, I
seven
mean,
catches for Wes Welker, you're thinking 120, 130 yards.
yeah, well, usually he gets like 10 receptions a game, and I think if he gets one more, he'll pass Jerry Rice for the most ever, like in NFL history.
Wow.
Like, yeah,
And yeah, and we were talking about how last week if he crosses 100 receptions for this season, that'll be 5 consecutive seasons with 100 or more receptions, which
and
is
no NFL player has ever done that. So
not even consecutively, just at all. 5 different
yeah,
seasons in their career. So I mean, like we said, I think Canton is calling for Wes Welker. It's just unfortunate that this is going to be his last year because I mean, it's business. He's going to be looking for a big deal, and I think this offense can get by without him, especially
yeah,
now with what we've seen with Julian Edelman. So you know. But going back to Julian Edelman, we were talking about his concussion. I still don't know the severity of it is, but with the way he's been playing, I really hope it's on the shorter end.
yeah. When I saw it live, it looked actually pretty bad. Like that's the reason why he fumbled it because he was knocked out cold
Hmm.
and the ball fell out of his hands. So I mean, it's tough to lose someone like that who can play like all 3 facets of the game. Because I remember last season he was played like in the defense for some of the time. So I mean, he's very versatile. He's very good at catching passes. He's very good at punt returns, kick returns, whatever you need him to do, he'll do it. So
Yeah, no, it's just tough because I mean, again, this is a team all year that's been dealing with injuries on all sides of the ball. And now, if you look at offense, they just lost Rob Gronkowski. Now they probably lost Julian Edelman for next week. I don't think he can come back next week. We'll see what can happen after that. Aaron Hernandez did come back. Didn't have a big game. He had 2 catches for I think 36 yards. Yep. So it's a team that really is a lot of guys. And despite that, Brady is still putting up monster numbers on offense. He had 300 and let's see, blah blah blah.
23.
323. Yeah, 323 for 3 touchdowns. Mark Sanchez 1 yards passing, but despite losing all these guys, Tom Brady is still putting up big numbers, which is why, going back to last week, when you told me AJ Green was your MVP, I gotta say no, it's Brady. Look at what he has to deal with here. He's losing guys left and right, but he's putting up big numbers. So that being said, I think Hernandez coming back. I hope they're not rushing him back, because he did not have a great game. I didn't see any significant limp from him.
He
I
had
don't know
that
if you
nice
noticed anything. I think he looked
that
okay.
first catch he had, I believe, was like 21 yards in either the first or second drive for the Patriots. So I mean, he can if Brady looks at hey, gonna have a good game, but maybe Brady will start looking towards everyone now that Edelman and Gronkowski are both out. He'll probably look more towards like Shanko and see if how that works out.
Yeah, that's right. Shanko did not catch a ball yesterday. I don't know if I saw him on the field, but I don't see him
I
there
saw I
yet.
saw I saw him for a couple plays. I saw him
Yeah.
around.
Yeah, Daniel Fells. That's how bad we are with the tight end situation right now. Gronkowski and Hernandez. That Daniel Fells was in, and
Oh
he
yeah,
caught
yep.
he caught a ball for 24 yards. He actually had a near deep catch a few games ago where he was running like a post route and he
Hmm.
dove and he just missed it.
Yeah, I
But
saw that. Yeah.
yeah, I mean they're just kind of dealing with a lot of injuries right now, but despite that, they put up some monster numbers on offense and again special teams and defense. So I'm starting to feel better about this team going forward. A couple of weeks ago we weren't so sure. The defense is still, okay. Actually, that's very strong saying that they're okay. They're still pretty bad in the pass defense, but they're better now. And with this offense playing the way it is, and they're playing complementary football around, and you said it yourself, they're forcing turnovers. All of a sudden, I'm starting to feel a lot better about this team. I feel like they can go in there and they can try to, I think they can win out. I know they're playing the Houston Texans. I know they're playing the San Francisco 49ers. But at that, you still kind of have that confidence now that you didn't have a couple weeks ago. And if they can go in, I still think Houston's going to lock up the number one seed, but I'm hopeful that they can take the two seed from Baltimore, who has, let's see, they have one more win than the Patriots, and obviously they have the tiebreaker.
Yep.
So they're one game ahead of the Patriots. They have the tiebreaker because they played head to head. But we'll see what happens there. If they can get the number two seed and get that first round bye, that would be huge, and then hopefully they can make a push.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see them winning out because it's tough to face Houston and then San Francisco. I mean, Houston, their defense has struggled over the past two games against Jacksonville, and then Detroit. They should have lost that Detroit game, which would have been huge for the Patriots, but
Mm-hmm.
against the 49ers, especially with Kaepernick at the helm
Mm-hmm.
for the 49ers, that's if he keeps the job.
Right.
Um, but
Right.
they look good.
I don't know when Alex Smith is coming back, so it could be Kaepernick.
Well, Alex Smith was questionable for this past week's game, so it wasn't like ruled out. He was
Mm-hmm.
like iffy. Like he probably could have came in if they wanted him to. Like if something happened to Kaepernick.
Right. Right. No, like you said, I mean, are those back-to-back games, Houston and San
Yep.
Francisco? Yeah. So there you go. I mean, I hate to say it, they'll probably drop one of them. I'm thinking they'll drop the one to Houston. They'll win it at home against San Francisco. But on the whole, this team is playing a lot better. And again, let's not get carried away. This was the New York Jets. This was the Jets. So I mean, we should kind of remember that. And then the other blowouts that they've had were against the Bills and the young Colts, and also St. Louis at Wembley. Those were the blowouts. This is not how it's going to be against San Francisco. This is sure as hell not going to be how it happens against Houston. Those are going to be very close games. It's going to be like a shootout, 38-35, something like that.
Yeah,
So
or well, maybe not a defensive battle, but like a turnover battle.
yeah, yeah. So I think we have to take this win with a grain of salt. It was one of the. I think I enjoyed this win more than any other. I mean, like it's always fun to beat up on the Bills, which they did twice. Beating up on the Rams is fine, but beating up on the Jets like this on a national stage on Thanksgiving, I think this was the most enjoyable win of the season, especially with how it happened. Complimentary football, all three phases. It was fantastic.
Yeah, one of the broadcasters actually was like Tom Brady probably wouldn't mind if he put 100 on the Jets.
Oh, I wouldn't either. I would welcome it. I would welcome it. That would be amazing. So, well, there you go. That's pretty much your Pats Jets wrap up on Thanksgiving. That was first of all, hope you all enjoyed your Thanksgiving with friends and family. Enjoyed it safely. I know I did, and I'm sure Brian did too after that amazing game. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, so we'll be back next time, and we'll talk about hopefully some Red Sox or Celtics talk on here. We haven't really been talking about them all that much. We'll talk about Rondo, also who now tied John Stockton for the most consecutive games with 10 or more assists. So we got a lot to talk about. We got a lot happening in Boston sports right now, and we'll be right back at you guys hopefully later this week to break something else down. In the meantime, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.